Dear friends, welcome to my video. In this video, I'll show you how to connect to your MS SQL database from your Android app. So let's begin. So before I get into the Android Studio to develop the app, I'll just quickly try to show you how to set the MS SQL Server in your machine. So for that, just go to Google and you have to install probably two things. One is MS SQL Server. So you can just type MS SQL download, and the first link, whatever it will come, you can just open it. And this is the link where you'll get to download the software, the SQL Server, MS SQL Server. You get two options, Express or Developer. I will recommend go with Developer option, download and install it. The second thing which you will need is probably at the end of this, it also asks you to whether you want to install SQL Server Management or not. If you have not chosen that, you can separately install it. Just go and search for SSMS download, and again you can go to the first link, and in this link you can it gives the download link for SSMS, which is SQL Server Management Studio. So just download and install these tools on your local machine. So once you have downloaded and installed, I'll just tell you a few things which you should take note of. First thing is you have to start the services, respective services. So to start the services, you have to just go to the services in your machine, in your computer, and in that please scroll down to somewhere near SQL Server, and please ensure that these three services, SQL Server, MS SQL Server, SQL Server Agent and SQL Server Browser. Even browser is important because we will communicate to SQL Server over TCP IP protocol, so this is important. So make sure all these three are running state. If not, run it, and if it's running, probably it's never a bad idea to even restart. Well, so once you have done it, the other thing which you will have to take care of or note of the port number. So the port number you can figure out by going to SQL Server Configuration Manager. Just go to that SQL Server Configuration Manager, and inside that go to this network configuration, and in protocol MS SQL Server, make sure both of these are enabled. By default, I think this will be disabled, so enable them by right click and doing the enable and disable. And once you have enabled, go to these properties, and in the IP address, scroll it to the bottom most, and the TCP port number 1433 is the default which we get, but sometimes it may change. It may get 1434 something else, but take a note of it. So this will be your port number, and the port number on which your server is running. For the IP address, what you can quickly do is you can go to your command prompt and just type IP configuration, because you need the IP also is hosted on your local machine. So this will be your IP address, or rather this will be the IP address which I will use in my app to interact with my MS SQL database. Okay. So once you have done these settings, I think that is more or less fine. Yeah. So now what we can do is we can start our studio. So for that we can do SSMS, that is SQL Server Studio, where we will try to configure our database. So when you click this kind of window will come up, and this kind of it will ask for login. For the first time, I think it will only give you an option of Windows authentication. So that means it will automatically take your login, user ID and password from your Windows credentials. So please log in through Windows authentication. I'll show you the steps how to enable this SQL Server authentication as well. So once you have gone into it, you will get the structure. So the server address will be on the top. This is your server address where your server is running, and then there are different fields: database, security, and etc. So first we'll create a new user ID and or probably say login ID for our server, because Windows authentication we should not always use. So we'll make one of our own security. So before we do that, first I'll try to show you how you can enable the SQL authentication as well. So go to right click on this master and then go to the properties pane, and over there in the securities field, please ensure that you have moved the server authentication to SQL Server and Windows authentication mode. So this will take both. It will take Windows authentication also and server SQL Server authentication as well to log into your SQL Studio, SQL Server Management Studio, which we call SSMS in short. So once you've done it, then what we can do is we can create a new login, which is user ID and password for us. So login name we can give probably test, and then we can go for the, of course, then again here you can choose whether this login ID will take Windows authentication, but I will create another password, and probably I'll keep it same as test, and I will enforce password policy, probably yes. Enforce password expiration, no, I will just disable it, and that's all. And then I probably will also like to give some kind of server role, so I will give it as a probably owner or something. I like database creator. Let me see if it's fine, and let me give okay. So why I given a database creator is because we will be now creating and writing in database through this user ID and password which we have just now created. So I like to use that. So if I expand this login, so we can see our test login has been created here. We can even modify it again by double clicking over here, and this window will pop up again. If we have forgotten something, we can just redo it over here. Okay. So once done it, I'll close and restart and this SSMS so that I can log in through this my test user ID and password. Yeah. So we came back, and over here we have to, by default, of course, it will come Windows authentication. So we'll change to SQL Server authentication, and over here I was expecting this test to come, but let me see. Yes. So we have no login using our test user, and now we can start creating our database. So in database, by default you get system database and etc. And over here we have already got one database, but that is not accessible. Probably that database was created using some other ID. That's why. So we'll create another database using this user for test. So I will just name it as test database. Perfect. And what else? I think the rest of things I'll leave it as it is. So once created, we will get a structure of all these things. So what we can do over here is now we can see if we can create a table in this database. To create table, there are two options. Either I can right click over here and then create a table directly, but I think I'll use a more of a programmatically. So I'll go to the SQL query, and here I'll just use my create table, and then you can give your table names probably test table. I think it should have been capital, and then column name probably I'll give it C1 something. You can give anything, and the type of the column I'll keep it simple and short, and then just click on execute. So once done that, I think it's successfully completed. So I was expecting a table to be created. If not, let me see if there is some refresh option. And yes, so see this table has come up. Right now this table would be empty, so there only there will be one column filled. So we will also insert something in this column. So let us insert now. So I will probably create a new query on this database itself. So insert into, and our table name is test underscore table. I'll give column name which will be C1, and then values. And values I can give anything over here, whatever I want. So probably I'll just type my first table. Yeah, so this I'm expecting to get into the table. So this was also successfully completed. Of course, to get this, I will again create a new query, because I could have done in one. So for the timing, I'll say no over here. I'll go for another query. I could have done in one page only, but I want to keep the separate query page separate. So select star from table name. So table name is tst underscore table. So if I execute, I'm expecting a result. My first table entry which we just entered here. So that is coming up over here. Perfect. So we will be doing the same thing. We have to extract this string from this table of the database which we are running on this MS SQL Server from our Android app. So let's now shift to our Android Studio now. So we'll just minimize this and bring our Android Studio. We'll start a new project and we'll keep it a simple layout. I won't spend much time on layout. So my SQL, or I'll say my MS SQL Server database connection. You can name anything over here. I'm just trying to put it any name over here, and we'll wait for some time to our ID to load up. I think it was pretty quick here. So now first thing, before we get into layout or Java code, first thing we may have to do is include something in our gradle file. So go to the build.gradle, and inside here in the, please make sure you have gone in the app level and not the project level of gradle. So first file over here is the project level and the second one is of the app level. So once you are here, then what you can do is you can implement. So why we are doing this is because we need the required drivers to connect to the database. So drivers are not by default available in our Android Studio. So that's why we have to do it. So okay. So we will do net.sourceforce.jtds colon jtds colon 1.3.1 and then sync now. The syncing is successful. That means this implementation has been included in our environment. So we will be using the JDCB driver called JTDS. There are two options. One is JTDS and one is from Microsoft itself. JTDS is considered to be much more reliable and secure. That's why I use this. But you can even explore the other option. This JTDS is freely available on SourceForce. So that's why you have to use this to get the required libraries in your environment. So once this is done, the next thing what we'll do is we'll in the manifest file we'll declare the permission, and the permission which we need is to use the internet. So because why we need the internet permission is because our app will be interacting with the database, although both are hosted on the same machine, but even then it will use internet, the TCP/IP protocol to interact with each other. So that's why access to internet is needed. And anyway, most of the times these kind of applications are hosted on some server outside in the internet, and you will be needing that TCP/IP access to that. So you will need access to internet. So normally these days in Android Studio is sufficient to declare the internet permission here in a manifest file, and it's more than sufficient. But I'll just also show you how you can ensure that in the older versions where it was required to take the permission also from the user, so it is just you declare it in manifest file and it will have the access to the internet, because it doesn't needs explicitly and permission from user from your Java code. But despite that, I'll just show you how you can do it. So you can just go to this Java code in the onCreate method, and here you can just put request permission, and we can make new string, and this will be string of manifest dot permission dot internet. Yes, and then package manager permission granted. Yes. So this is what you have to add it here, but I will repeat, in the newer versions of Android you don't need to explicitly put it. By default, the moment it's defined in manifest file, it gets the access. Okay, so I think more or less our from environment perspective we are done. I'll just do some quick things in the layout. Before I get into layout, I'll just define a dummy or a public method which I'll call public void SQL button yeah. So this is the method I will call from one of my button which I will insert here. So probably I'll put a button here and give it some constraints. The name I'll put is SQL. So when a user presses this button, the respective output what I was expecting here, it will fetch the data from test table and show it in the Android app. So let's switch back to our here. And more or less I think we are done in the button. Now over here for this text box, we'll use this text view to display our output. So we'll keep it. We'll just give some ID to it. By default it was not given, so text view is a good one ID. And then we can give some constraints. First I'll just remove the default ones, yeah, and then bring it somewhere in middle, and then give the constraints once again. Perfect. Yeah. Now there are some warnings which is hardcore text, so we have to just fix it by just clicking fix. Yeah. So more or less our layout perspective are done. I won't spend much time over here. Now I'll move to Java code. In Java code, this line is you may or you may not put, it up to you. And now we will first thing we need is we'll need handle to our text view widget by what we just created. So that we can take it using text view equal to find view by id r.id dot text view. Yes. So now whenever we have the output, we'll just use this text view to write our output in this text view. Now we'll start defining some of the local variables which will be needed in this class. So the details which we'll need is, say for example, we'll need IP address of our database. So that was something I think I will go to this command window. It was 192.168.1.101. So I'll just use that 192.168.1.101. Please make sure this IP and all these things informations are accurate. Even a small mistake will lead you to errors and you'll spend hours fixing them. So second is port. So port number also we got it. It was 1433 if you remember. Got it from this SQL Server configuration. Go to this protocols for MS SQL Server. Right click over here, and in the properties, in the IP address, you will get the port number over here 1433. Okay. So this was the place from where we got the port. IP we got it. What else we will need is we will need the class name which we'll use. So private static string class will be again. So we have anyway included that was net source force dot jtds dot jdbc dot driver. Yeah, and so in class probably I will have to use some other way to correct it. Yes. Now what else we'll need is we have IP, we have port, we have class, we need database to which we will connect to. So our database will be probably database, and the database name we can get it from our SSMS. Yeah, so the database name is test database. So where D is capital. So please, I am not sure. I think we have to be. It should be case sensitive. So please ensure you type the correct case. And last we need is the credentials to access it, which is user ID and password. So our username will be it was test, and the password also was test. So don't make sure that you correctly put the password as well. Password test. So that's all. One thing what we can do is we can make the URL directly over here itself. So I will just make another static string and URL, which will be nothing but the combination of our IP address and port. So for that, what you have to do is you have to first type jdbc colon jtds colon SQL Server, and then we can use the IP which we have just defined above IP, and then we will have our port with separate by colon. So now we can have port, and what else we can have is we can have our database. So that will be database. That's it. So this will directly connect through using this. So it will use the driver which we have installed, JTDS driver, and it will try to access the SQL Server on this IP and port and at this database over here. So that's all. What else we'll need is probably we'll need one connection. So we can just initiate it here like this. Yeah. So yeah, now we can jump to our method or implementation of the logic. Before we proceed, we should make sure that we have defined a strict mode policy. Strict mode dot thread policy equal to. So this will ensure that our connection is safeguarded. Dot builder dot permit all dot build. Yeah. So, and once we have it, then we can just set it strict mode dot set thread policy, and what we have defined our is policy. That's it. Yeah. So make sure you include these lines, and now we can start our implementation. So first we should, although the classes are there, but we should make sure that we explicitly tell we explicitly enforce the inclusion of the class in our app. But I can see there is some problem. So if I just take a hint, rename reference, so I think the problem is happening is we have classes over there and here also. So no, it should be better, I think. Yes, class for name. So make sure that this you have some different kind of name, probably classes or something like that. Yeah. And once you have it, then probably you can use that classes to be included here. I think it will give some kind of exception. So just surround with try catch. Yeah, that should be sufficient. So once we have it, and now we can start connection equal to driver manager dot get connection, and over here the arguments will be, the first will be URL, which we have already defined, the second will be the username, so which we have a username, and the third will be the password, which we also have password here. That's it. There is again some kind of exception, so we may have to include it. So I will always prefer to add catch clause, because that gives me flexibility to understand where this error is being thrown. Yeah. So once this is done, probably we can use this approach to set text and say something like success here, so that we know that this connection has been successful. And probably we can also put failure in the other catch clauses. It's a kind of like quick debugging technique, but you can always read the log file also. So error, and here probably I can put failure. You can put different text, so then you can identify from where the failure is coming or issue is coming up. Okay, so once we have done this, now what else we'll have to do is, in the create or in this SQL button, we can just quickly use this connection what we have created in our own create method to run our query. So for that, probably in this SQL button, first thing I'll check is whether this connection is null or not, because if it's null, no point proceeding. If it's not null, then only do the below. And what I would like to do is first make a statement, and a statement will be made by connection dot create a statement. Yeah. And now in this statement I can execute the query, but for that I'll have to first have a result set equal to statement dot execute query, and over here we can form our query. So I think I'll use that same query which we used here. This is the letter start, because I want to fetch the control C this data my first table, and control V. Yeah, I will like to use that. And but I can see there are lots of, I think, exceptions again, so I'll surround with try catch, and I would prefer to keep this also within that try catch. I don't want to keep creating lots of try catches all over the place. Okay, so once we have our results in this result set, then what we can do is we can use this result set to get our values. So what we can do is we can just iterate through this while result set dot next. Then we can use our text view, do set text, and result set dot get string, and we have to pass the column index, which is the first one for our case, and that's it, is what I think. And if it's say for example, if this part is not true. I mean, if our connection is null, then we can probably again print something very simple over here, like else text view dot set text and connection is null. Perfect. So I think more or less our code is done. We'll just quickly run it and see what happens in our emulator. Our emulator has come down, it has started, so I'll just bring it up. I'll probably bring it side by side. So this shows success. That means this connection has been successful. So this is being printed here, line number 48. So I'll just quickly execute our SQL, but nothing happened, and the reason for that is probably the button click is not yet connected to this SQL button method. So I'll just quickly go here in the layout, and here in the button, if you go scroll down, on click associated with the SQL button method. So if you go back to Java code, you will see it has become more black and more dark now, and we'll restart and we'll wait again. So it has come up again and it is showing success. So I'll click this button and it shows my first table. Perfect. So that's the query which we had in our server. So this is the entry which we did over there, my first table. Probably I'll just make one more entry here, say for example my second data, and let's see if it's able to capture this. So I first put this one and then I run it. So I can first check in the database itself. So it gets my second data, and now I go back to my app, and if I click on this SQL button, it gets my SQL data. So if you can see, it's directly connected to the database, and each time if there is any change in the database, directly it gets reflected here. If you make any further entry, it will be a newer entry over here. So this is a very simple or easy query I have shown over here how to implement. But of course you can enhance it and include other functionalities what you want, like insert, or even you can create tables directly from these commands over here. But I just wanted to keep it short and simple over here. So that's all. I hope you find this video useful. If you have any questions or suggestions, please put in the comment section below. And if you like this video, then please subscribe to my channel, and please like this video. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and have a